Hello, I'm retired Battalion Chief Larry Cockman, Chairman of the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee. The American Fire Service is rich in tradition and culture. A firefighter's life is filled with many emotional highs and lows. Stories of major fires, national disasters, medical calls, firehouse living, and family life are often verbally shared from one generation to another. Many times, these stories are lost forever when a firefighter passes away. In an effort to preserve these stories, in 2019, the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee launched a new program of recording audio-video of our retirees' lives. These stories will be shared on our website, gfhbc.org.
Full name is Forrest Allen Goff. I'm 59 years old, and I retired 7.5 years ago, and I had 31 years on the fire truck.
And you're right?
I retired as a captain.
But are you originally from the Greensboro surrounding area?
No, I was actually born in Biloxi, Mississippi, and that's a long story there. But we moved to Durham when I was in the second grade because my mom's family was there. And so I was pretty much raised in Durham. And didn't know much about Greensboro because I didn't go much past Chapel Hill.
Were you a Duke fan?
Yeah, I absolutely was.
Cut the thing off. Did you have any family members, past or present, who served in the fire department? And if so, did any of them influence?
Yeah, I actually had a cousin who was in the Durham Fire Department in the 60s before he went PSO. And he was a big influence. Matter of fact, he's still kind of a mentor of mine today as we both get older. He's in his 80s now, or soon will be 80. And my older brother was, when he retired high school, he went to, I think it was Archdale Community College or something like that over there in Trinity area. And he was interested in the fire service, and he worked for Gil Rand for a little while. So they were kind of the two that kind of introduced me to the fire service. And then how I really got, I guess, the bug bit me, so to speak, was one of my good friends. A lot of my high school classmates, there's probably a dozen of us, all graduated together, and they started off at the volunteer fire department. While they were still in high school, I was chasing girls and trying to play baseball, so I didn't have no interest in it. But I failed at both of them. But anyway, a good friend of mine, long story short there is that he had a wreck. But in between, right after our freshman year in college, it was a pretty significant wreck, and it messed up his back.
Mm-hmm.
So he couldn't drive. He pretty much blew out all of his lumbar region on his back. And so he wanted to go down to the fire department. The only way he could get there is I'd have to pick him up and take him down there.
Okay.
And I'd hang out with him during the day, and that's kind of how the bug bit me.
Wow.
So
before you joined the fire department, what were you doing?
I was kind of just floundering. You don't know the truth about it. Went right out of high school. I went to junior college. Then I got out and kind of worked a little bit of construction, just odd and end jobs. And then, like I said, the bug bit me, and I started applying for jobs. I started off actually at Durham, and they declined me. So I reapplied, and then when they turned me down a second time, I started broadening my net, so to speak, Burlington, Raleigh, those areas. And then a friend of mine, actually, who was trying to get on too at the same time, got hired by Greensboro in the 38th class. And when he graduated, he said, "Hey, they're getting ready to hire another class." He said, "So you're interested in applying?" So I applied, and I was fortunate enough to get hired in the 39th recruit class.
Were you ever in the armed forces or anything?
No.
Okay. Before you joined to be in the fire, did you ever imagine being a firefighter before you became a firefighter?
I reflected on that question a little bit, and yeah, when I was first started hanging around the volunteer department back home, this is kind of strange. But I look at that pump panel and say, ain't no way I could figure out how to do this. It was just too much. But so that was me trying to talk myself out of it, to be honest with you. And my cousin, who was assistant chief there at that time, he had resigned from Durham when they went PSO, and he was working for IBM, but he stayed in the fire service. He was at that time an assistant chief at that volunteer department. He said, "Yeah, you can do it." And he was very much of encouragement. And then when my brother got on with Gil Rand, he told me the same thing. So they were putting the building blocks there, but I still didn't think I didn't have the confidence to do it. But eventually, I took a shot at it.
Explain to our listeners, those that may not know, what does PSO stand for and what it's about?
PSO is Public Safety Officer. That's when some fire departments across the country, I won't go into great detail, there was some big study about how cities could save money if they combined the forces. And you still had some police officer, most of your firefighters left the fire trucks and went in and got in, and they put them in police cars. But you still had like a captain and a driver still at the station. In some cases, maybe just a driver. And when the call come in, the fire truck would go, and then all the police cars would come in, and they jump out of their police uniforms and put their firefighting uniforms on. And that was one big giant.
You don't say it.
It landed like a lead brick.
Okay. Can you describe the hiring process when you were hired, what you had to go through in Greensboro?
Well, I had to, and this was, I would call old school. You had to come into town. This was before all the internet. You had to come into town, go to the municipal building, and actually get a paper application. So I took several trips to Greensboro, which wasn't that, just 45 minutes to an hour from Durham. Fill out the application. At that time, you only had maybe a 2 week to a month open window when they started the process and they closed the process. So you went and got your application. I brought it back home, and it told you everything they needed. So in that 2 weeks to a month, that's what you were busy doing. And you made sure you got it back in to where you're supposed to turn it in before the due date.
And do you remember your starting salary?
Yeah, $16,600
Monthly.
No. That was annual.
Oh, $16,600.
Yeah, you had to divide that by 12. I think I had my first, because all your deductions, everything, I think my first check was like $501. I thought I was making something. That's the most I ever made in my life up to that point.
Anything happened? Do you remember any class members and instructors?
Oh, yeah. At that time, it was 1989, when we were 39th recruit class. At that time, we had one of the largest recruit classes. I think we had 33. Now, 2 of those were from Reedsville. You remember what Reedsville would bring some over? And that was Mike Carlson and Brian Washburn. They came over and trained with us, but then they went back to Reedsville. But our whole combined class was 33, and 31 of us were for Greensboro. And some of my classmates, Jackie Beard, Jackie Spoon. There was a young man called Aaron Fisher, I think, unfortunately committed suicide early on, like 2 weeks into our recruit training, just when we were starting to get to know one another. I had some pretty cool, Bobby Mitchell, Chuck Snow. We had some big boys in our class. Mike McLean, Bobby Brown, just some huge ones. And some of our instructors, because we had at that time was Captain Spears, David Spears, and Captain Skip Nix. We had Captain D. Staley. They were all captains at that time, but they all went pretty high up in the organization. But at that time, Captain Staley, she was just found out she was pregnant. So they had some people come in to fill in for her. And that's where I was introduced to Charlie Jones. There was a couple others I can't remember at this moment. But I had some pretty good influences and some pretty good instructors that were teaching us.
Remember any funny moments and stories from your recruit class?
Yeah, I said, let me think now. I think the statute of limitations is off. Yes,
Go ahead.
I think everybody's retired and for several years and they got their pension, and I don't think they can go back and take it. But we were known as the cucumber class. And I won't go into great details about the cucumber, but back in those days, we would run the streets in the morning for our PT, and one of the instructors was active duty, and he'd come off the squad, and he was very well known for long distance running. Anyway, a story was circulating about this individual, and he was pretty hard on you because he was really, really good, really physical shape. Well, some of our classmates, we got to work that morning, and he'd always take off. You go left out of the parking lot and take a ride on Tankersley, cross over the Elm, and then we cross over the bridge and get down on the park and run. That's before they had the Greenway, which all that's the Greenway now. And we get to a stop sign, there'll be a cucumber hanging at the stop sign. We get to the next street sign, there was a cucumber hanging at that, and there was cucumbers hanging in trees. I never found out who did it because one, I didn't want to know. But anyway, we thought it was pretty funny. Well, when we got back to the training center, we noticed that we were running more cool down laps than we normally would. This just kept going on and on and on. And finally, we got noticing that a lot of chief officers were coming out. And next thing, that kind of gave us our second win. And we felt like they were trying to break us or make a point. And everybody's got their second win, started hooping and hollering. Even though Jackie, he was 40 at the time, he was one of the oldest one to go to recruit school. I think he was 42 or 43 at the time. Even he caught his second win, and running was not his thing at that time, but they didn't break us. So they finally said, all right, they called it. We got back. We kind of figured out what was going on then. And we got back in the training classroom, and Captain Spears come in. He said, all right, it's over. And then we moved on. But in a roundabout way, that kind of bonded us. The cucumber thing. Anyway, that was.
We can't tell about the cucumber on camera.
No.
I understand.
No.
Okay. At any point, training or thereafter, not that firefighters feel like we're any braver or any better than anybody else, that you were doing something special for the community or was a little bit different. Did you ever, at any point, feel like that?
I don't know if it was ever in training, but I'll just be quite honest with you. I was too young and stupid to realize it. At 22 years old, I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I just didn't have the full grasp of what I was entering, you know? And I think that happened a little bit later on in my career. There was no one moment. I think it was an accumulation of several things that I guess when you actually are able to put your training into practice and the result is what you're hoping it would be, either CPR or something, or you brightened up somebody's day or made it just a little bit better when you left and when you got there, you could see that on their face, the family or whatever. That's when it started sinking into me. And I noticed, I'm doing something a little bit different here. This is more impactful. Yeah. So that was not in training, but sometime early in my career, it started taking hold, and I was starting to understand what I had entered.
Saving lives and saving property.
Yep.
Do you remember your first station assignment, the apparatus, and who your first captain was?
Sure do. I don't think I'll ever forget that. It was Engine 5, Station 5, old Station 5. Not old Station 5, but old Station 5 on Friendly, right beside, across the street from Hams.
Okay.
Captain Barnett was my first captain. F.O. Evans was my first driver. Jimmy Joyce and Vern Pennery was my first crew. I remember my first day like it was yesterday. I got there early. At that time, we shift changed 7:45. And I got there at least by 7:30, maybe even a little bit earlier than that. And as I was coming up to the back door, I had all my stuff in my hands. Of course, the bay doors were down and the side door was locked. And I knocked on it. and I think it was Tommy Braswell from the 38th recruit class, looked out the window and said, "Door's locked, go around front." So they made me walk around front. And as I'm walking around to the front of Station 5, Engine 5 is going out on a call. And I didn't know. Anyway, the guys didn't say, "Hey, you missed a truck," and that. So I thought that, well, that must be that shift or whatever. Anyway, so I'm walking it. Really don't. I'm just trying to process what's going on. And I ain't doing a real good job at it because that's a lot of people, a lot of moving parts. And anyway, somehow I make it to the bedroom, and I'm standing there at the bedroom. I still got the stuff in my hand. I don't have a locker. And I remember FO. I didn't know he was my driver at the time. I'm standing there, had them old tile floors. This was a bunk bedroom with like 6 or 7 beds down this way and 6 or 7 this way, and the TV and everything was in the back. And FO kicks a bed frame that's still put together, but it slides across the tile floor. He kicks it, and it goes about 4 or 5 feet, 6 feet from him, but in my direction. He goes, "Look, this is your bed." And the headboard was all broke on it. And I'm saying, I don't even know where it goes. I don't, anyway, I'm still holding my stuff. and Mike Henson, I remember, I didn't know his name at the time, but he was standing at a dresser and had his elbow propped up on it. He opened up that dresser and got out a golf ball, because my last name was Goff. And he didn't throw it at me. He just kind of done like that. And that thing started bouncing across the tile floor at me. I'm like, well, either got to let it hit me or catch it. So I caught it. And when I caught it, first words out of his mouth was, "Look, if I catch you without that golf ball, that's an instant 5 gallons of water." So I had to shower with it, sleep with it. And at that time, we wore our blue duty shirts all the time. So I had to keep it in my pocket. He said, "If I call for it and you ain't got it, you're getting wet." So, and they done that to me. I had to carry that golf ball for 6 months until I took my 6-month test.
Did you have any nicknames?
Yeah, I think the boys in rookie school named me Wicky.
Wicked.
Wicky, Wicky.
What was the, why?
Because back in those days, I could cut the rug a little bit.
Cut the rug like
dance.
Oh, you could dance.
Yeah, like MC Hammer and all those guys.
I didn't know you could dance.
Now I can't even walk and chew gum at the
You
same
couldn't
time.
give us a little?
No. I could, but I fall into the lamps and everything.
That's all right. You just told us about holding the golf ball.
Yeah.
Any other jokes stand out in your mind?
On me or on somebody?
That you did or received?
Oh, well, we ain't got enough film.
Okay.
But I thought about this. There's 2.
All right.
There's a whole lot more, but some of them you actually would get in trouble for and probably get fired for.
Okay.
But again, I think everybody is retired and statute of limitations will run out. So, one of the ones I would not encourage anybody to do this, but it was on squad when I was on squad 7 and you was our battalion chief. And I'm not telling that one yet, but I'll get to that one. I know what you're talking about, the horseshoes. My partner was Mike Varner. He was second generation, a legacy. And I never knew his dad, but a lot, including you, knew his dad and didn't have nothing but high praise for him. So, but Mike, if you knew the squads, but for those who didn't, it was a 2-man truck. And you alternated to drive. If you was a driver that day, you took care of the truck, and the guy riding shotgun was patient care and all that type of stuff. But it didn't matter if Mike always beat me to the nozzle. It didn't matter if I was driving or riding shotgun. Most time the guy riding shotgun had a little bit of an edge on the guy driving because, you got to put wheel chalk down. Mike would get in the truck with gloves and everything on. It's firefighting gloves. I'm like, so one day I said, I'm going to get him. And like I said, I don't do this at home. Okay. So we had to change out to a reserve squad, one of the last gasoline reserve squad that was manual. So he's busy doing some things, working with the garage. So I got my air pack and all my stuff, and I got his air pack and was putting it in his compartment. I took all his shoulder straps and waist straps and tied them in as many knots as I could. And I said, because if we get a fire tonight, I'm getting on that nozzle. And sure enough, we got one with 4 on somewhere off Spencer Street, those single story apartments where you have like a 4x4 concrete stoop at the front door, bread and butter stuff, nothing major. Well, we get there right behind engine 4, and that was a good crew on 4. You had Woody Parrish, Randy May driving, Randy Woody on the back, Kelly Giles. I mean, they were good to fight fire with because they could handle their business. Well, they were busy catching the hydrant, and I come off the squad, and I got him. And at that time, you only had one walkie, and the guy riding the shotgun had the walkie on the squad, and we didn't have the strap, so you had to put it in your pocket on your breast right there. And the antenna stuck out. I said, I got the whole time. I got him. I put my air pack on, and we had the inner spiral, so my mask was hanging down. As I'm coming around the back of that squad, you're going to have to bleep this. Mike said, "You mother," I said, "Blah." He said, "I'll get you." Because he was trying to get that air pack on and all the straps were short. He said, "I'll get you." So I got him. So I go over to engine 4, grab the line. Me and Captain Parrish are going to the front door because they're busy catching the line, getting everything. And their guys are suiting up as well. So we got to the stoop. The fire was over to coming out 2 windows on the right side. But we're going to go in this front door, take a right, knock this out. This is going to be done. The engine 4 is going to have to clean up. We go get back in service and go. Well, put the nozzle down, and I'm putting my mask on. And when I went to bend, I had my helmet. When I went to bend down to get the nozzle again, my walkie comes falling out onto that concrete stoop. So this is like slow motion. As I'm reaching down to grab that nozzle, I see this big 13-foot come through and kick that walkie over into the bushes, which are just off the thing. And it's Mike. So I had to go get the walkie. When I turned back around, he's got the nozzle going in. So he got me anyway.
Got you anyway. Well, there's something about the horseshoes.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell that story. This is, and you were part of this. And sorry, David Brain, but you were a part of this too. You guys are bantering back and forth, and there was always something about ping pong or horseshoes. And 07 had a horseshoe pit out back, and we throw every night, just kind of as a way to wind down after maybe a busy day or whatever, and just to continue the camaraderie after supper. And that was a nice, relaxing way. Sometimes it get a little competitive, all the guys, but this one particular day, you and Brain wasn't on our shift. Brain was a trade worker on our shift. So he picked on you, or you picked him out one. So y'all were bantering back and forth about who was better at horseshoes. And it was going to be a big thing after supper. And the loser had to buy milkshakes for everybody. And of course, it was building anticipation. It was all in fun. You got guys with both of us laughing and cutting up. And so after supper, I guess I was the witness because somebody had to be the witness. And I'm sure there were others out there, but I remember you and Brain. I knew I was out there because, I don't know who threw first. Let's say Brain threw first. He didn't even hit the sand. Your first 2 shots were ringers. We go down there. So you're up. I can't even remember what a ringer is now. And then the next shot. So you got to throw first. And the next one you threw was a ringer. And I heard, as I was watching it go through the air, you could tell, you knew it was a good toss because you said, "Take a picture of this." And as it rung, I turned and looked, you still had your hand up. And so it was two throw. And Brain didn't hit the sand in any of his 4 shots. He couldn't even come over top of you to extend the game. So the game was 3 throws, 2 up, 1 back. And but Brain went and bought milkshakes.
That was a good night. We're sorry, David. He told that story.
That's how you kind of diffuse things.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, you described some of it already, firehouse living, the culture during your time. Describe a day coming in. When you come in, what you did. I'm curious to a 24-hour shift. Well, I know you'll get different calls, but a typical 24-hour shift.
It changed a little bit as I got older, but as just the firefighter on the back, you come in, you come in, put your stuff in your locker, and then you go over and take the guy who you exchange with, the firefighter you exchange with, you take their stuff on, put yours on. As soon as you get there, put theirs up, check your air pack, and make sure that it was good to go. If not, you took care. If it needed a new bottle, if it didn't have enough air in it that you felt comfortable with, you go top it off and put a new one on, and put the spare in the truck, and just tell the driver, say, hey, we're down one bottle. And when I was the rookie, anytime and this is what Cap Barnett wanted me to do, and I kind of used that when FO was out, when the truck was out and FO was messing with it. Now, if I wasn't studying for my 6-month test, he expected me to be out there with FO, helping FO. Mm-hmm. And so that's pretty much my routine when I was a rookie. Was, like I said, I check my equipment, go over the truck, pretty much every day, because at some point, and he told me, he said, I'm going to quiz you on the truck. And you need to know your truck. And so that was the first month or so of coming in. And once I checked my equipment, then I went over the truck as a whole. Then my responsibility, because I was the only rookie on that shift at that time, and my responsibility was to clean the bathroom and the locker room. Right. So then you just roll right from checking the truck into whatever your duty was, your cleaning station.
Why do you think crews should eat together?
Oh, yes on all that. Like I said, that old Station 5, you had the engine in the truck running out the front. You had the squad running out the back, and you had the battalion chief there, which I think at the time was Car 1. Then you even had the battalion commander. His office was, because that was a small house, had a lot of people in it. And so, we ate lunch and supper together. Everybody took a turn cooking. That was one thing I did notice later on in my career. When it was your cook day early in my career, it was all solo. Every once in a while, you might get somebody come in to help you, especially if you had an unusual busy day. But that evolved into more like, it was more of a team effort, because everybody, everybody was riding more calls, and you had less time to really sit down and make real good home cooked meals like I did when I first come on. But it was, if you was running behind, everybody would jump in to help, because everybody wanted to eat. We ate together. We ate Sundays. We ate Sunday breakfast together, but Sunday afternoon dinner was more relaxed. You kind of, if you want to go call something in or go pick something up, that was more of a relaxed time. But every other shift, it was lunch and dinner were together.
Was you a good cook?
Huh?
Was you a good cook?
Not to start with. No, I was horrible. I didn't know a head of lettuce from a head of cabbage. And Mike Henson, again, I owe Mike Henson, but I was the rookie, and they told us coming out of school, rookie school, said, hey, if they ask you to do something, just get your keys. It might be their cook day, but they probably going to send you to the grocery store. And they did. Not everybody, but Mike, he was old school. That's how he was taught. He sent me to the grocery store 5 times before lunch. And all he was doing was a firehouse meal. He said, oh, I forgot to get this. And about the 4th trip, I realized what he was doing. But, you had to take it with a grain of salt, because that you're a rite of passage, so to speak.
What was your favorite dish to cook?
It varied over different times. I think I liked to cook it, but I got so much trash talk about it, I didn't cook it much. And Chris Bowman told me about it. It's called Snake in the Grass. It's kielbasa sausage and turnip greens. And I got so much ribbon about that, so I didn't cook it much. But I liked it. I cooked it at home some. But I really enjoyed the Saturday hot dog. Really took pride in trying to make good chili. And one of the Keith Jones was my last driver at 61. He could make good chili. There was none no better. There was probably some just as good, but there was none no better. In the 30 years, I ate Firehouse hot dogs.
let's talk about what it costs to eat. I think nowadays it's about, for both meals, usually runs about $12 to $15. What, if you cook both meals at the firehouse, what do you usually have to put in so everybody?
When I first started in '89, it was $5 a day, and you had money left over to put in the kitty. And a lot of stations had the kitty, which was the change from what was left over. And like if once you accumulated enough, you might buy steaks out of the kitty, or something like that, or somebody's birthday or something like that. You might have a special. Anyway, $5 got you a long way in '89. Like, so you still had some, and that was, I remember when it started changing, from $5, and then we had a big bump to 10. And man, I was getting $10 out of a guy. It was like pulling his eye teeth. They were just fussing and refusing. Well, cost of living and everything was going up, and that was a big jump. A lot of the stations had some type of little garden, and they would use the tomatoes and stuff out of that to cut the price down on. And some stations had pretty decent gardens, but I think the guys back in the days, like O'Furl, Captain O'Furl, they were way more frugal, and they could make that dollar stretch a little bit.
How do you feel about the transition? We went from large dorms to where we stayed at night, all the beds together, to the cubicles. Pros and cons. Any feelings about the differences? And
yeah, I'm a big advocate. There was a lot of, I like the dorm style, because there was a lot of times when it's just the guys, the captains and the chief officers had their own bedrooms. Station 5, they were across the hall, kind of like Station 8. It was very similar floor plans. And you just got a chance to go in there and kind of vent to your buddies, and of course everybody could hear the conversation because there was now the downside was there was absolutely no privacy. And as I got older, I can kind of see the benefits of having a little bit of privacy, especially if you're like studying for a promotional exam or something like that. So I learned to appreciate the cubicles that the dividing wall don't go all the way up to the ceiling. Mm-hmm. So you still got some interaction, and there's a lot of team building and a lot of bonding that goes on when you're not in a formal setting, and you learn one another. You're just talking about family or just talking whatever. Same thing like at the kitchen table. But yeah, I think there's an element that it's lost because you go to the semi-private rooms that you lose, that it's being lost. That sometimes I think the company officer is responsible for team building overall because you're responsible for everything that goes on in that firehouse. But that sometimes that informal leader that's sitting back there in that bedroom can help facilitate some of that team building and those open conversations. And some of that, is they just got to figure out different ways to do it because of new style bedrooms.
Do you think the relationship between firefighters and their families, like visiting the stations versus Sunday in my day was a big day for families to come over. Do you think any of that's changed through the year?
And that's probably going to depend on the station. I know when I was at 4 and then went to 61, my last few years, on our Station 5 seemed to really carry on that tradition real well of having a lot of family activities at the fire station. Single company, like I said, it depends on the personnel too. When I was captain at 4, my first stint, the guys were all very similar in age, and they're young couples, and all their kids were very similar in age. So that cultivated a relationship or an opportunity for them and they would all coordinate and make sure to have their kids come by, mainly on Sundays, because like you said, it was a more relaxed atmosphere. Yeah, I I think some of it's changed because they're not in the stations as much as they used to be. They're out in the streets. It's hard to, ain't no telling how many times a wife or a husband has probably come by just to pop in to see their significant other and they're gone. And so I think society and the demands of the job have probably changed some of that.
What value do you see in these retiree interviews?
Oh, well, you definitely can't put a dollar amount on it. I've learned some things about some guys, and some of them have passed on. I thought they were, and I won't mention any names, but he was adamant. He was a truck company captain, and that's all he wanted to be. And he seemed like he didn't have no time for the engine, the squad or anything like that. And he was telling his story here, and I found out why. I didn't have no idea. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that. And it kind of gave me a different light on that individual. So yeah, I liked him, and he was always nice to me, but I didn't know his story on the things that he had seen in Vietnam that carried over to what he had seen in the fire service. That it happens to all of us at some point. You've seen enough, and you don't want to see that. And he associated the squad and the engines with ride medical calls. In my words, he didn't say this, but an opportunity to see more death. And he had seen enough of that with he just didn't want to witness it no more. And I didn't know that about him. So I think the guys, because you make it a comfortable atmosphere, they open up. So it was very, very valuable.
Why do you think it's important for active duty firefighters when a retiree stops by to spend a little time with them?
Obviously, I think it's important to the current active duty people, but it's just as important for the retiree, for those folks to be willing to talk to him or her. Because it makes you, when you're active duty and you're in it, you're like, and this is how I think of it in my mind, your brothers and sisters. Now I feel like I'm a long lost first cousin. I'm not in the grind every day. I don't get to see the guys every day. I don't know what's going on every day, and which that's fine. That's just part of. And I just feel like, and I have been asked. I've been fortunate enough to ask him back eat hot dogs at some stations several times. And if I'm in town, I go for two reasons. One, they invited me. They thought enough of me to invite me. The other thing is, you ain't gonna get a firehouse dog except in a firehouse. And you just can't buy them. You can't go buy the chili in the store. So I enjoy still eating that firehouse hot dog. I think it's important equally for both parties. One, it keeps it makes it feel like the retiree is not intruding, because you don't know what their activities are, and they might have something major coming down, and they got 15 minutes to be there or something like that. And so it makes you still feel like you're part of, and they're glad to see you. And then on the other part, they sit down. They do things a little bit different now, but there's always people. Personnel issues are still personnel issues. You just might have to process them a little bit different on the computer. So that I think there's value in what retirees can maybe offer up, because they've probably been there and done that. And, if a guy's having, or girls run a call and she's having a little bit of trouble with it or something, that retiree's probably run that same call, and they could maybe give them some insight on how they dealt with it. Or,
do you remember your first emergency call and your first fire?
Yes, I have two different incidents. My first, going back to my very first day, you remember I said engine fire was going out the door because they made me walk around front? Well, it was an extended call. So Captain Barnett gathered us up, me, F.O., Jimmy Joyce, and Vern Penry, said, hey, we got to go relieve engine 5. They're on scene for a while. And it was like a down power line. And back then, we hung around for everything until They don't do that today. If it's out of the road or whatever, you just ain't got time to hang out for 12 hours for a down power line. But back in those days, we did. And so we went and relieved that crew. And it was I can't remember, at some point, Duke Power got there. Anyway, we cleared the scene. I remember FO was driving actually, and Captain Barnett was up front. Jimmy was in the nozzle seat on the other side of the dog box. So we was Engine 5 at that time was a sister to Big Red. So they were the only two enclosed cabs, first two on the department. And I could barely see Jimmy's head over that dog box. And Vern was sitting in the jump seat, and I was right across from Vern in the flat down seat. And we got a call 200 Spring Garden Street. And we were first in because we were close to downtown anyway, so we beat 4 in. I don't know if Cap McCarter was on that shift or not, but if he was, they probably ate him up because we beat him in. But you didn't have the headsets. All I heard was the motor rev up and the lights come on and the siren went off. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm sure my eyes are this big. And so, and we pulled down into the basement part of 200. And I said, what'd I do? And Vern said, stay here. I'm like, all right, he's okay, I'll stay here. So they all get off, they got the gear on, and I'm sitting in that flap down seat. And a few minutes later, FO turns around and said, look, what the hell are you still doing here? I said, I was told to stay here. So that was my first one.
Okay.
My first fire, I think it was on Holbrook. It was with Engine 8. And we still had the split load. My class was the first rookie class to be taught with a large Darwin hose because it was getting ready to be brought out onto the line.
What class number?
39.
Okay.
And so we learned the split load, how to catch a hydrant with the split and the 4-inch. But when I went out on the line, they hadn't brought the 4-inch out yet. So my first 2 fires, I caught the same hydrant a month apart. The first time was with a split load. The second time was with the 4-inch because about in that month period, they had put all the downtown companies, 4, 5, 7. I think Engine 2. I think Engine 2 went downtown. All those had the 4-inch on them. And sure enough, about a month later, we got a call back over in that same block of Holbrook, and Barnett opened up the sliding door and said, look, catch that hydrant. And it was the same one I caught a month later with the split load.
You rode the squad.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about some of the calls there you had on the squad?
You know, I reflected on that quite a bit when you sent me I could sit here probably 2 hours talking about things that you learned and experienced. But there was 2. The first one, and they happened 2 shifts apart. I mean, Rodney Henson was riding with me one day, Mike's son. He was a trade work for Mike Warren. And we go over there to Fairview. I think it's Fairview. Anyway, there's a little pool right there. And an elderly gentleman, 80-some years old, was at like Silver Slipper or doing exercise in the pool, had a heart attack down in the water, face up. Me and Rodney that's first when we hadn't had the defibs long, and they were in those ammo-looking boxes. And so we get there, and Rodney got him out of the pool. I was just Rodney was still a big man, but he muscled him up out of the pool, and I was helping the best I could. And we got him on the side of the pool, and Dale was my captain on Engine 7 at that time. They were close by, so they come over to help. And 2, they wanted to see the defib in action because it was just the squads that had the defib at that time. We couldn't use it because he was soaking wet. So we had to do old-fashioned CPR until EMS got there. We brought that guy out. Well, through our efforts, he had a heartbeat, a pulse, and they checked him into the hospital, admitted him into the hospital. According to our record or rules at the time, that was considered a life save. The very next shift, 10, 11 o'clock at night, me and Mike roll out on ourselves on an unresponsive, how do they say? I think it was an unresponsive infant. We get there, you'll never forget this. We pull up, Mike's driving, I'm riding. As soon as you open up the door, you hear the mom screaming in the house. And Mike says, go. He's going to get all the stuff. I just took off. By the time I got in the house, the baby is face up. It's smaller than the infant that you practice on. Ashy gray. And I grabbed him. I grabbed it up and I did a little chest compression. And then when I turned it over and kind of done the back blows, all that milk and every stuff just come out. And you knew it aspirated on its milk. And of course, by the time we hear EMS pull up, and I don't mean to be you just grabbed it like a football and ran to the back of the ambulance. And so all four of us in the back of that ambulance, and I remember the paramedic, I remember his name, but I won't say it, but he was awesome. I mean, everybody had something to do on a little bitty body that big. That's the first time I seen them put an IV in a baby, so you had to put them in the femur. And that's because the veins were too small. And they got the tape out, measuring how much medicine and stuff to give. So they wanted both of us. Normally on CPR back in those days, one squadman would ride in with EMS to help one in the back because the other EMT or paramedic was driving, and the other squad would follow. Well, that baby, they wanted both of us back there. So I had to call Dale. They wanted both of us to go because the paramedic wanted both paramedics and one of us to help. So that meant I or Mike had to drive the ambulance. So I held Engine 7 on the TAC channel, and they came over and picked up the squad and brought it to the hospital. The part about that I'll never forget was Mike was busy, and the paramedic was ready to go. I said, I got it, I'll drive. Well, the mom was in the front seat with me. I couldn't drive that ambulance fast enough to get to the hospital, but I cannot describe the sounds of anguish that were coming out of her. And so when you get back to the fire station, me and Mike are sitting in the office and you're going, how could it don't make no sense. An 85-year-old that already had a lot of health issues anyway, you did your best effort for them, and fortunate for them and their family, he survived. He done the same thing for this 2-month-old that didn't. Yeah. And it's like, that's the things that you wrestle with. And so, yeah, I'll never forget that call as long as I live. It's just the sounds only a parent can make, and especially the mama can make. And that was her only child, their first child. And her husband, she was at home by herself. Her husband worked third shift. The little things I can remember is crazy. Her family was both their families were from Virginia, so she had nobody. And having to deal with all that by herself was just, those are things you just never forget. And you can't train enough to be prepared to face that until you actually face it.
Do you remember any big fires, significant major incidents that you own?
Yeah. This was later on. This is when I was a captain. And it was Barron Walk. I can't remember the address, but they aimed at 3 apartment buildings on Barron Walk over at Station 4. And it was a Sunday. I do remember it was like November the 11th. No, it was a Sunday in November. It was early in November. And it came in with all the classics: structure fire, fire showing, people trapped. When I first went to 4, I was a driver. I was a driver at 5. Then Randy Brand got promoted to captain. And then I was fortunate enough to get assigned to Engine 4. That's always where I wanted to be. So I finally got an opportunity to go. One of the first places that Dale called, he was my captain again. We met back up. One of the first places he took me was the Barron Walk. He said, now that's a street right there. I said, looks like a sidewalk to me. He said, no, it's a street. And he said, those 3 apartments right there are numbered off of it. He said, don't forget it. He said, because it's going to be a tough stretch. There's a lot of special circumstances to that. And we talked about it. And so when I became captain and I had an opportunity to go to 4 as a captain, I continued that tradition. Every day we had somebody new signed to the truck. One of the first places we go, we'll take them to Barron Walk now. And I remember I had a brand new John Fiery. He just got promoted to driver, never been on that side of town. And so, of course, I gave him my Here at the Rock speech and all that stuff. I said, after you get everything squared away, come on, we'll ride the territory and I'll show you some stuff. And one of the first places I took him was the Barron Walk. And the guys I had on that crew that day, when we pulled up, you could look down, it was the furthest apartment building down, and you could see smoke. And the thing that stood out to me about that one was there was a guy trying to climb the gutter to get up to the portico or the little roof to get to the second window because they were all frantically waving down. That kind of gave you a hint that this is something a little bit different. And there's probably actually people in there because they were all pointing and waving. And as we were getting off the truck, you could hear him go, she's upstairs. She's up. The mama's upstairs. We were just talking to her and we can't get her no more. So, and the guys I had, we had already kind of had a plan about that place, pre-planned. And so, hey, if this building catches on fire, we pull this. And then we already knew if it was the third building, we was going to have to pull the apartment way because it was the longest stretch pre-connect that we had. And the guys already knew they worked the basic plan to perfection. And we were stretching the hose, and John Fiery, my driver, instead of setting up the pump, because we was there a couple of minutes for anybody else, he went ahead and grabbed the 24 and was running down the sidewalk with it and had it thrown up to the window. Then he went back to set the pump up. So we had everything already in place. Long story short, there was, we initiated the rescue, but we had ladder 7, ladder 11, engine 11, car, I think it was 2 chief ends at that time. And then he requested additional engines. But the outcome couldn't have been no better. We was able to bring the mama out and her 4 babies. And so that outcome was about as good as you could hope for. And they all lived. But that was also the call. When I got back to the station at 4, I knew I was different. I knew time was drawing near, that my career was coming to an end. I didn't tell nobody at that time, but I just knew internally, I knew I had changed from that call. Even though it was all positive, I was getting to that point where I didn't want to see it no more.
Did 9/11 affect you personally or professionally?
Oh, yeah. We were working that day. And we had EMT Con Ed, and we were getting ready to go to it. And back then, it's where training was where fire life and safety is now. And we got in the truck to head towards EMT. And by the time we got there, we was 10 minutes early. So we know how it always was. We'd always go through the big training room and go back to see the staff and say hello to them. And I remember going to see Kenny Stanley because he was the battalion chief in training at that time. And he had his little TV on. I said, hey, Chief, how you doing? He said, doing good. I said, what's going on? He said, a plane hit one of the towers. And I was thinking like everybody else, probably a little prop plane or something. So we didn't think much about it. So we go back in there and start our Con Ed. And it won't long, maybe 5-10 minutes. I can't remember who come in. Might have been the assistant chief over training. I can't remember at that time. Came in, it's all right. Another plane has hit the towers. These are commercial airliners. We're canceling EMT. You guys go back to the station, lock down until you hear further. And the thing, of course, you glued to the TV all day. And you see both towers go down, and you're in disbelief of what you're seeing. And I remember Brad Smith, he was captain at the time, he was riding his part-time job. He'd ride EMS. So EMS wasn't busy that day either. So they stopped by Station 4 and we were all watching it. And you just kind of just couldn't believe what you were watching. And, and the stories were going on and on and on. And one of the things that I reflected on that day sometime later was, I don't even remember no calls going out. I don't think we wrote a call that day. If we did, it won't but one or two. And the radio was eerily quiet. Because I think everybody in the country was watching TV. And I remember another shift. It had nothing to do with 9/11. And I'm getting to a point on why that eerie silence stood out to me. It was during a snowstorm. And when the trees started falling, Glenwood, you know how Glenwood is, that the old trees and stuff. When the trees started falling that morning and our power line started going down, I think Engine 8 wrote almost 60-some calls that day. We wrote 24. Mm-hmm. Had a fire that night, snow on the ground. And I remember sitting at supper looking at Dale going, the calls were banging out every 15 to 20 seconds. I said, I just need 15 minutes of silence so I can enjoy my supper. And so how did that change me? The second part of that question was, I think you understood that the brotherhood was bigger than Greensboro. At that time, I didn't travel around a lot and go visit a lot of fire stations like some guys did. So they understood that, but you understood that the fire service as a whole was a brotherhood. And that means everybody, men and women all included. It wasn't just your brothers in Greensboro. If you were a firefighter at that time and another firefighter knew you were a firefighter, they want to look after you, take care of you, especially if you was in need. And just reflect on that one more little thing was Ladder 118 in Brooklyn. Leon Smith, I think was his name. His family had already moved down here. One of his daughters went to Bennett College, and his other daughter, I think, was in UNC Charlotte. And he was actually on the phone. They got a famous picture of Ladder 118 going across the Brooklyn Bridge heading towards the towers. Well, he was on his phone talking to his wife, I believe, who was already here. I think they lived in Greensboro. When word got out, I think our department sent somebody down to Charlotte to get their daughter because they didn't want to drive them back. And I think our department, that brotherhood and sisterhood thing, I think our department rallied because at that time he was still missing. So yeah, there was even a connection that day that we didn't know about but because of 9/11, we knew there was a Greensboro connection.
Who are some of your mentors or role models coming through?
Oh, wow. I had, of course, they were all, at the time, they were captains. And I think that's what inspired me. I could see the influence that captains could have on their crews, and it may possibly even in the direction that people took their own personal careers. And so it was, you've heard some of the names before, Gary Church, O.C. Johnson, and Dale Combs. And all three of them, well, O.C. was O.C., I remember my first captain was Cap Barnett. And O.C. come over, of course, every year you rotated. Battalion chiefs went one way, the captains went another way. So within 3 years, you was going to have all three captains on Engine 5 and work with all three battalion chiefs if everybody stayed there. So it come time to change, so we got OC. And I remember, I had been on, I had taken my 6-month test for sure. And I was working my way towards my senior firefighter. But OC come in the kitchen one night and probably asked you the same question. At some point, but he just took a genuine interest in me and Next thing you know, we talked at the kitchen table. So I bet it was well past bedtime, but the question was, what's your goals in life? What's your goals in the fire department? And that started initial probably a 2 or 3 hour conversation, which started into a lifetime friendship. And Gary, all of them very capable, very, very capable captains. They all just had a little bit different styles. But the one thing I think that they did have unique, that they all truly cared about their people. At least that's the impression they gave me, was it just wasn't, they weren't caring about you to make themselves look good so they could get promoted. They were truly genuine, cared about you, not just as a firefighter, but as a person. And, Gary was, more, along the spiritual. He was going to ask you the question, did you know Jesus as your Lord and Savior? It was going to come up. And Dale, it took me a while to figure out Dale, how his leadership style. Well, he truly, probably out of all of them, and there were some other great ones, but he truly, to me, led by example. Dale never called me into the office and set me down and said, hey, look, this is why I did this, and, I made this. We never had those. If we had those conversations, it's because he was in the office and I would go in there and say, hey, Cap, that was a pretty unique call. How did you come up with the decision that you come up with and make it? And he would sit there for a long and explain it. And it was not that I was questioning him. I was just wanting to learn. And he would open up and we'd have those conversations. But it was his day-to-day, how he approached the job that I learned. And I wanted to be that kind of officer that led by example. He was a good one. He was a very good one.
What was one of your proudest moments during your career?
Well, I can give you the stock answer. When training and you do what you've been trained to do and you have the outcome like a CPR or something, those you feel internally, you feel good because you were able to do what you were trained to do and paid to do. And the outcome, I'll be honest with you, the outcome was never our call anyway. That's a higher power than ours, but I like to think we played a role in it. But probably from a personal I was very happy and very proud of myself when I obviously was promoted to driver. But the energy and effort I put in to become a captain and the competition, and I had a goal of wanting to make a score of a certain amount in the written part. Just the energy and effort, and I was able to achieve those goals. And unfortunately, I made the rank of captain. So that not necessarily the rank of captain, but the process that I went through and was able to meet all my goals going through that process.
If you could do it all over again, would you do it the same, or would you change anything? And would you do it again?
Yeah, I think I would do it again because reflecting on that when I was retiring, there's the one thing that the fire department reminded me of, and this is going to sound crazy, was my high school baseball team. And when you got a collective of people that in baseball you practice, in fire department you training, and you all come together as a collective to reach a goal. And so, I'll either, if I hadn't landed in the fire service, which I hope I would do again, I probably would eventually landed in the military because, that's pretty close. We got a group of people coming together to form a unit to reach a goal, work together. I just thrive and I work better in those environments. So, I would do it again. What would I do different? Just be honest. As that young 22-year-old, I probably would have talked less and listened more. yeah, I probably would have talked less and listened more.
Describe what you would say is a successful firefighter.
That could be many different things, and it encompasses different aspects of the job. But I would think if you're happy and content doing what you're doing, you're providing for your family, you're a good husband or wife or a good significant other at home, and you're able to raise up a family, the fire service is a way to provide for you to do that aspect of your life. Your family life dictates, I think, on how well you're going to do your career. Your family comes first. And if if that's good and solid, then you can come to work and you're going to be a much better productive employee. You're going to be happier. You're going to be, that just centers around your life. So to have a good, solid family life, however that looks, that's going to reflect in your career. That's going to roll over into your career. And to be a good, be happy and content with what you're doing, give you all at whatever you choose to do. And if you're able to get to the end of it without too many scars, physically, emotionally, I think you've had a pretty good, successful career.
Anybody outside the fire department make any differences it might make a big difference in your life? Anybody else? We talked a lot about firefighters and our jobs, and anybody that comes to mind that outside the fire department?
Oh, wow. Well, he was also, I mentioned Gary, but because of what he meant to me outside the fire department, when it comes to my spiritual family, that when I was just a young pup, he took me under his wing and kind of guided me through some pitfalls, when you're a young Christian and that type of thing. And there's been others that have come along through the years, but him willing to take, and when he was doing that was when his first wife, Virginia, was dying from lung cancer. So he didn't have to, but he took the time, and I never forgot it, never will forget it. Even though he was a captain in the fire department, our relationship outside the fire department was more important. And what he did for me away from the job is, which has allowed me to get a good solid base in my faith and then move forward in my faith. I talk to guys, got to help them, especially young guys in the faith. And I'm still learning myself. I'll learn till the day the Lord calls me home. But I know you meant somebody specifically. I guess my other one would be my brother, the one that lives in Archdale, Trinity. When our mom, and she used to live with my sister back home in Durham. And when my sister, unfortunately, she was older than us, her health declined to the point where she couldn't look after mom. So she went into a nursing home, and then my mom moved up here, and that allowed me and my brother to reconnect and even closer. And so, his life's experiences and things, being the older brother, has really, and our talks that we've had throughout the years, primarily when we were looking after our mom, but after she passed, those talks and things have continued, and that's pretty special.
How's your health today? Are you doing pretty good? Yeah, we've knee surgeries, back surgeries. We all have those. A bunch of. How you doing today?
I think physically doing pretty good. To be honest with you, as I'm getting a little bit older, being able to deal with stress and anxiety, I can't deal with it as good as I used to. And I don't know if that's just because I'm getting older. It could be that, or it's, carrying some baggage that we all carry. So I've actually have reached out. This has just happened over the last year. So I reached out to talk to some folks to find out, is this normal, or is this something that I've kind of put away, kind of swept under the rug? It's fostered itself. But it's not every day, but when that wave of anxiety comes on, it's not paralyzing, but it never used to be that way. I used to could kind of, like raindrops, it hit and I could deflect it. I'm not able to deflect it as easy as I used to.
If you could speak to every new firefighter or entering the service today, what advice would you give them?
Oh, wow. My gut tells me this. The Lord gave you one mouth and 2 ears for a reason. So you speak half as much as you listen. But to be a little bit more specific, when you're first coming in, just be humble. Don't expect or demand anything. And listen to the folks that are on that truck, or maybe they're not even on your crew, but that have been on the fire department for a while. They just absorb everything that you can, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And just know your opinion will matter more down the road than it does the first day you walk into the firehouse.
Is there anything else you'd like to share that you thought about when you were preparing for the interview at this time? Anything that you...
Yeah, the fire service, as we all know, there's no other career like it. For the most part, the Greensboro Fire hires really good people. And there's always going to be outliers, whatever case may be. But they usually get the best of the best that's applying. And so I took that for granted when I was in the fire service. My whole 30s. I knew there was good people there, but, and now that I've gone and going into the private sector, so to speak, that there's good people there too, but you don't have that brother and sisterhood that you got in the fire service. So for the one thing I would say to the active duty folks, don't take that for granted. Because when you're down and out, there's people that will come to your aid because you're a firefighter. And you make one phone call and there's going to be 4, 5, 6 people that will show up to help. In the private sector, it ain't so much that way. So don't take that brotherhood and sisterhood for granted.
What would you like for the fire department to remember about Forrest?
I got the most out of this little body I could give you. I remember when I made the captain's list. At that time, they didn't rank you. It was whoever passed the test on this particular process made it, and there was 60-some. And I remember going in, and of course, you made your little circuit and talked to everybody. So, hey, please consider me. At that time, Captain Spears and Captain Staley were both deputy chiefs who were my training officers. And when I went in for my interview to get on the fire department, it was Captain Staley was one of them, and I think it was Captain Green was the other. So when I went in to talk to Chief Staley there, Deputy Chief Staley, to please consider me, I said, what I told her, I said, Chief, you remember, I know what I am. I'm Billy Joe Jim average. I have to work hard just to be average. There's nothing spectacular about me. But so I said, but you seen something in me when I come in to do my interview that you was willing to give me a chance give me a job on the fire department. I said, please see that again and just give me a chance to be a captain. I said, I won't let you down. I said, just know, there's nothing flashy about me. Anyway, I got promoted to captain and stuff. But this was my internal measuring stick. When I was a rookie, and I didn't share this with anybody else. When I was a rookie, and whoever my captain was, or if I was riding in that hydrant seat, and at that time, like I said, we didn't have it, but they opened up that sliding door and turned and said, hey, catch that hydrant. And they looked, and they saw it was me. They knew the hydrant was going to get caught. no questions. And when I was in the nozzle seat, if they looked back and saw who was on the nozzle, we're going to get this thing done. Same thing as a driver. It meant more to me what my peers thought of me on how I done my job than anything. I wanted them to make, when they saw me, especially when I was a driver, they knew that they were going to get water unless there was a catastrophe, and I was still going to take care of them at least enough to get them out. And when I was a company officer, whatever truck I was on and my crew, and you was in the battalion chief seat, you see a truck pulling up, you know you needed some help, and you see the number on the side, I want to know, oh yeah, that's Captain Goff and his crew. They're going to get the job done. That was my internal measuring stick, was to make sure my peers had enough trust in me. They knew whatever needed to get done was going to get done, and they could trust me with it.
What was you like for your family to learn about Forrest?
Because I don't have no kids, but I got a nephew that's in the fire department. He's a captain in Durham. Just that, and I paid homage to my wife at my retirement. If it wasn't for her being able to take care of the home front, there's every day I was gone and being able to do I wouldn't have been able to go out and took care of other people's problems or issues. So yeah, just know how much I appreciated her taking the home pressure off of me so I could take care of things at work, which they know I fall over every day going to work. And I didn't consciously think of her when we was going into that zero visibility room to put a house fire out. But every decision I made sure I did my best to do everything safely, keep my crew safe so we could go back home to our loved ones the next morning. You asked me, one of the things I reflect back on, probably the most thing I'm proud of was, and it wasn't all me, it was only by the grace of God that when I was a captain, I didn't make any stupid decisions to get any of my people hurt. That I can really rest my hat on, and I'm very, very fortunate to be able to say that. And I know there's some guys out there that it wasn't a bad decision, but guys just get hurt anyway. But as an officer, you're going to feel like it's your responsibility. In a roundabout way, it kind of is, because you're responsible for them. But I just thank the Lord that He allowed me to get through the career and as an officer in a leadership role and be able to look after my people and they go home safe.